Welcome to tonight's On the Diamond podcast. I do want to address some before we start. While this is predominantly a baseball content related podcast show, tonight's episode, for reasons of aforementioned context, will discuss plot elements, spoilers, and storyline elements to copyright material that is owned by Viz Media, formerly Rooster Teeth, and Warner Discovery, Bang Zoom Entertainment, who owns Viz Media, who is the primary dubbing company for Viz Media, and the family of the late Monty Ohm, rest in peace. I would wonder how he'd feel seeing how his content has been getting butchered as of late. The rights owners to RWBY, spelled RWBY, not RUBY, because it's meant as an acronym, not the name of the gem. Of a team, because it's meant as a team acronym, not the name of a gem. All characters, names, and elements from show are strictly being used for context and little to nothing else. And I am opening the channel to any and all baseball and or RWBY aficionados. Though granted, I would prefer both. Though the only two I do know of would probably give me the cold shoulder because of alignments with a certain VA that got thrown under the bus because for allegations of crimes he didn't commit. Anyway, in many ways, general manager David Stearns and general of the New York Mets and General James Ironwood from RWBY are basically cut from similar yet different cloths. How? Both believe what they're doing is right. They believe they're the smartest man in the room. The only problem is they're both pretty stupid when you look at it in hindsight. The difference being that with Ironwood, at least, we had at least 7 of 8 volumes to realize everything he did was done out of a false sense of bravado and an attempt to intimidate the main antagonist, Salem. For those who don't get the reference to Ironwood, he is basically the Tin Woodsman from The Wizard of Oz, but in a situation that is completely opposite to the actual character. Namely, what would happen if the Tin Woodsman had a heart, but in time, he ended up losing it because he got caught up in either his own bravado or fear for others to a point where it chipped away at him. Hello, Daniel. Share screen. By the time we meet him in Volume 2, we see that everything he does is all to not just Salem, but to the audience, is basically all bark and no bite, or very little bite. Because Ironwood's semblance, the superpower that is based on his soul, that is connected to his soul, metal, spelled METTLE, basically requires him to hardwire and hyper-focus his brain into a single task. And see that goal to the end. The only downside is that it gives him tactical tunnel vision. Driving him to the point of paranoia. And we see this as early as Volume 2 when he shows up with his entire army of robots. He prefers, basically, like Stearns, Ironwood prefers having people under him who have no sense of autonomy, which is why Stearns has constantly kept that puppet, Carlos Mendoza, under his thumb, because he's a puppet who's just happy to be in the position he's in without realizing the dangers of what happens if you let yourself get bullied around by your boss. Ironwood, on the other hand, wouldn't care for free spirit. I mean, sure, he can be open to input at times, specifically from his right hand at the time, Winter Schnee. But Volume 3, his decision to bring his entire army in comes back to bite him, as the main antagonist utilizes a computer virus to override his soldiers and turn them on the people of Vale. Volume 4, he gets desperate. Lock down the borders of Atlas and embargo any supplies coming in or out. Much to the dismay of another minor antagonist and a personal minor antagonist of his, Jacques Schnee, the father of one of our main protagonists, Weiss, as well as Winter's father, as well as pulling all the troops back to Atlas. After that, we don't hear from him for a while, and it's not until we see him again in Volume 7 how this has taken its toll. Also, unbeknownst to Ironwood, two members of the enemy cabal have slipped in under his nose. Tyrion Callows, a notorious serial killer, and a former scientist that was under him that ditched Atlas out of jealousy, Dr. Arthur Watts, the guy who made the Elysian security grid. And hacked his way into the city, into the lower part of the kingdom of Atlas, known as Mantle. I mean, when Ironwood learns Watts is and while he does let Team RWBY, the Juniper Remnant, in on his plan to repurpose Amity Coliseum into a communications relay to tell the whole world about Salem, he is trying to keep it under wraps as possible. The only problem, Blake Belladonna and Yang Xiaolong, more so the latter than the former, blab about this to Robin Hill. Instead of owning up to the mistake and letting Robin in right off the bat and not squeezing Mantle of supplies, Ironwood doubles down on his stubbornness and ego, trying to keep it under wraps. But it's not until Watts is exposed and Robin tells James she knows about the Amity Tower plan that he starts to crack a little bit further. Fast forward to the episode Gravity. After his fight with Watts, he calls Team RWBY into his office and basically chews him up and spit him out for telling Robin about the tower. This leads to his ultimate paranoid point. Take the Staff of Creation, a relic that can create anything you wish for it at the expense of it. It can only make one new thing at a time. Once you switch to a new item, the old one ultimately ends up having to be discarded. And shoot the kingdom into the sky, leaving Mantle to rot. Even during evacuations from people to get people from Mantle to Atlas. Though in my opinion, that was an even dumber evac plan. You're basically giving Salem a bigger target. Your best bet would be to get everyone in Mantle out to Vacuo. I even explained this in a fanfic with a character I created for a friend of mine. That I've helped give ideas to for a friend of mine. In chapter 113. Let's see, let's skip this. Here we go. Let's switch to this tab for a second, and I'll show you what I mean. This isn't a fanfic that's not canon. Let's bring it down to the chin. No, that ain't it. That ain't it. Forgive the wording. This wasn't written by me. It was written by a friend of mine who goes under the pen name Clone Trooper 7567, aka Rex Rules, who lives out in Boston. That's not the line. The character I create for this would basically be RWBY's take on Zorro, and I have the voice being Jayong Bosch. So, Vic haters, don't worry about that, okay? Here it is. Here's what my character says about bringing everyone in Mantle up to Atlas. No, that would give Salem more targets. It'll be like shooting a fish in a barrel. I spent the last several years taking disgruntled and laid off SDC miners and asking them to dig a series of tunnels from Mantle to the other continents. Vacuo, Anima, Vale, though mostly you're going to go to Vacuo. Big enough for people to get in and out of. And why? Because I'm going to spoil Volume 8 for those who haven't watched it yet. Long story short, after Team RWBY basically becomes fugitives, and Penny Paladina, an android who's basically a gender swap of a gynoid who's basically a gender swap of Pinocchio, becomes the Winter Maiden, basically the obligatory magical girl MacGuffin that's need to get into the vaults where the Academy vaults where the relics are hidden. Anyway, I know I'm going off topic, but trust me, it's gonna tie into this shit. I'll tie into Stearns, all right? Just trust me, I'll get to it. Where was I? Oh yeah. The masked vigilante turned towards Ironwood and frowned at him. It gives in with you giving to your fear of Salem, abandoning the people to death, planning to use the staff to launch Atlas into space, leaving Mantle and all of Remnant defenseless against Salem's wrath. You declare martial law, kill Sleet and the other councilwoman, and when Salem's incapacitated for a couple of hours, you threaten to destroy Mantle with a bomb you've stored away in the armories, unless teams RWBY and Juniper Remnant hand over Penny, who will become infected by a virus by Watts, who you bring back alive, thinking you could use it to your advantage, only for the Doctor to undermine and outwit you again. Why does this happen, General? Because your semblance has a drawback: tunnel vision. You only see one option when other options are available. Perhaps you can see your actions as the only way. I, however, cannot allow any more people to die, the Fox explained. Why mention Penny? Ironwood asks. Because she will become the Winter Maiden following Freya's death, and the virus Watts infects her with will cause her to terminate once she opens the vault. Though that is not what kills her. What does is that she becomes a real girl via the staff, and then hands the power over to Winter. Shortly after Salem fatally wounds her, and she in turn asks John to kill her so she can pass the power to Winter. Now, keep in mind there is a deviation with this story when compared to actual canon. What I described and what my character described basically is what happened in Volume 8, in the actual canon. In the build-up to this, Ironwood says, Winter, do not blame me. Firing his cannon, Winter moves out of the way of the blast as the blast destroys the top of the pillar. Winter comes in and creates 5 glyphs, launching an ice shard at the General, who rolls out of the way. I have sacrificed everything. Winter replies, no, you've sacrificed everyone else. You closed the borders, you squeezed Mantle till it broke. Ironwood would say, I've only done what's best for Remnant and no one's grateful. And in a way, Stearns would say that too. He's done everything what he believed was best for the Mets, and no one's grateful. In truth, you basically allowed your own Watts, that being Lindor, to basically tell you, I can get the mayor into the building because of my wife being on his cabinet. The only thing is you got to get rid of those who oppose his viewpoints, those being Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, Edwin Diaz, and being the stupid, dimwit piece of shit that he is, Stearns bought into it. Hook, line, and fucking sucker. Kind of like how Ironwood, in his own stupidity, believed that he could use Watts to get an advantage and get Penny back. The problem was, Watts was never going to cooperate with him. He would undermine him constantly. In the end, Penny ends up dying anyway. And this is the last bit of dialogue before Winter goes off to Vacuo. So, and this is after Penny transfers the Wintermaiden power to Winter. So the destiny I chose for you has arrived. Winter, in defiance, says, "You chose nothing. This was a gift." I wish he had added a gift from a friend, referring to Penny, which blasts Ironwood back. And as Ironwood is about to pull the gun on Cinder and Salem, Cinder simply turns back and says, "That's checkmate. Game over. You lose." And it's only a matter of time before this season really gets out of hand. The sooner the strings of the puppet are finally cut, Stearns will be forced to accept his defeat. And when the season's over and Kearns realizes, shit, I let an idiot run things, it's time to cut bait, he will do the same to Stearns, telling him, "That's checkmate. Game over. You lose. I do not want to associate with you anymore." Ironwood lost everything because he let his own ego and stubbornness and paranoia get in the way. And Stearns is going down that same road. Letting his ego, his stubbornness, and his obsession with analytics and having a minion instead of an actual person run things blow up in his fucking face. So between the two, who's worse? If you ask me, I say Stearns is worse because while in Ironwood's case, it's a situation of road to hell paved with good intentions. The problem is he never saw, with him, the issue was his semblance. He always wanted to do things his way or the highway. And it led to cataclysmic and destructive results when he kept turning a deaf ear and violating trust that his allies were willing to give him. Stearns, on the other hand, violated everyone's trust. He violated Cohen's trust, he violated the players' trust, and he violated the fan base's trust, which has led to this team starting the year having lost 21 of its first 31. And when you go back to last year, it's now 76 of its last 100 24 that they've lost. Yeah, in their last 124 games, the Mets are 48-76. That's fucking disgusting. Is it not? Ironwood may have lost the kingdom, sure. But by the time Atlas had already fallen, everyone had given up on him. He'd become a lost cause. A man who didn't even realize he had become a tyrant, but embraced it, becoming the very thing he was trying to fight against. But in the end, he at least realized everything he was doing, the bravado he showed when trying to fight Salem, basically was fruitless. Because Salem didn't see him as a viable threat. A nuisance at best. A little boy playing with toys in her mind. Stearns has lost a city and a fan base. Because he just doesn't want to let go of that broken shield. He doesn't want to stop playing with a rotting puppet. That's the gist of it all. No more, no less. That's how bad it's getting with this team. I mean, heck, even Ironwood's quote-unquote song, Hero, can also put this into full perspective. Written by Jeff Williams and performed by a man I've actually come across, I'm crossed paths with recently, Caleb Hiles. I'm just going to read the song. I'm not going to play it. I would die without regret. I'd offer up my life. With zero reservations, I would fly into the sun if that would keep our dream alive. Deliver you from harm, shelter in my arms. Will guide us home. We'll survive the storm. I will fight for you no matter how I am despised. Portrayed as cruel and heartless, I am might, I am power, I'm due process, I will smite. Our enemies destroy, metal I'll deploy. No chance I won't take, my oath to you I won't forsake. Hope's not gone, just hold on. I mean, this and the bridge after the chorus kind of explain why I pair these two characters up. Take as being mirror images of one another. Take my hand. I'm here to protect you. Nothing will stop me. Understand there's no sacrifice that I won't make. I'll risk it all to keep you safe. Trust me to be strong. I'll be your hero. Just hold on. There's actually a little more to the song. This is just what was shown in the show. The next patch of line is this. What if it's true if they say that I don't have a heart, that I'm more a machine than a man? What would that change? Would it matter at all? Right here. What if it's true, as they say, that I don't have a heart, that I'm more a machine than a man? What would that change? Would it matter at all? I've made my plan. Hearts and minds may not agree. Emotion topple strategy and win a war. And then the chorus repeats. So yeah, between the two, I'd say Stearns is worse. But he still has time to amend his mistakes instead of doubling down on them like Ironwood did. All he's got to do is hold himself accountable, step away from baseball operations, fire Carlos Mendoza, and I mean, sure, in the interim, let Kai Correa be the one calling things in the dugout. But when this season's over, and if we even get a 2027 season via the new CBA agreement, however they're going to structure it, hire a manager with experience. Also, another way they're basically two sides of the same coin. They hold two positions and abuse power. For Ironwood, it's headmaster of the academy and general of the military, which gives him 2 council seats. For Stearns, it's being both GM and president of baseball operations. If that doesn't scream abuse of power on both sides, I don't know what does. The only reason this team's not good enough is because you, Stearns, don't give a damn about this franchise. Jesus Christ. For those wondering what the Jesus Christ was about, I mean, don't watch the Nick Clark game right now. As much as I am a Knicks fan, it is bad. I'm so glad Mitch is doing Sixers Celtics instead. And what do I mean by it's bad? It's 60-19 with 7 minutes left in the half. Knicks. I guess some of the RWBY aficionados, those I sent the link to, are watching, but they're just not wanting to hop in. Again, understandable why. But come on, Arnold, Amber. I could use your damn help here with this. Just for the sake of just for context, you know. I get neither of you like me because of my affiliation with you know who, but that said, at least throw me a bone. I haven't done a legit video where I stuck my neck out for the guy for the better part of a year. And the only time I have attacked a voice actor in the last year or so, it was Kate Higgins, but it was for Trump derangement syndrome, not Vic derangement. And who was it who put out the health awareness video for Mike McFarland? As much as I don't like him, I did. Having said that, I think I'm done for the night. If anyone wanted to join, the link is right there in the description and in the chat. But I'm just going to pull the plug right here and now on this episode. I got what I needed to say out of the way, and I have nothing left to give tonight. Comment, like, and subscribe. I'm Mets2128. Comment and subscribe also to the Aboriginal Sports Network, and when I get back on it in about a month, the Hardcore Sports Network. Goodbye, and good fucking night. Bang.